People who themselves have a genetic disorder face particular problems when it comes to dealing with the risks of their family. My close friend and colleague Tom Shakespeare is a sociologist who was born with achondroplasia. Here he talks about his experience when he and his wife came to the obstetric clinic. Tom, thanks for coming along. Can I start by asking you, when you first realised that you had achondroplasia, when did it first become obvious to you that you were a bit different from other people?
I can't really answer that, John. I mean, what you have to realise is that if you're born with an impairment, it's always part of your life. And in addition to that, my father also had achondroplasia.
When you came to get married yourself and think about having kids of your own, what were your feelings about that? Were you worried about it, or were you content? I mean, how did you cope with that?
I'm not sure if it was clear cut. I mean, obviously, again, if you've lived all your life with an impairment, in many cases you're not going to see it as a problem, or at least you're going to be realistic about the extent to which it's a problem. You know that it involves certain amounts of social stigma, maybe a degree of pain and inconvenience, but you know on balance that it doesn't make a big difference to life. So I don't think I ever felt that I shouldn't have kids because of achondroplasia. I suspect, if I was being entirely honest, at the back of my mind, I hope they wouldn't have achondroplasia, because it makes life more complicated and more difficult. But as far as I was concerned, and indeed of my partner, the risk was one worth taking, and we were going to be happy with either outcome. But what I would say is that even though they hadn't found the gene when my daughter was born, which is 8 years ago, even though there was no test, ultrasound screening obviously is and was widely used, and the pregnancy was scanned, considerably more than a as it were unaffected pregnancy would be. So we knew.
Was that at your request, or
no, not at all, not at all.
Showing an interest.
More than an interest, I would say. We were obviously knowingly entering into a risk situation. We'd already decided that that wasn't a problem for us, and that the pregnancy would go ahead, whatever.
And did you feel under any pressure from the obstetricians to sort of, if it was abnormal, you might go for termination?
I think so. Despite the fact that obviously I was clearly affected, and clearly in a sense unaffected by the condition. The fact that they arranged 3 or 4 scans instead of 1, the fact that they pointed it out on the screen and said, well, yeah, look, and then there was a sort of, as it were, pregnant pause in terms of, right, what are you going to do about it? And we went, fine. And they went, but look, and we went, fine. And then there did seem to be a level of scepticism on their part that we really knew what we were doing, or that we were really happy about it, which seems to me to be extraordinarily arrogant, considering that we were mature adults, and indeed that I personally was obviously familiar with the situation.